Hey everybody, it's Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong, and I want to make a really simple journal using 6 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper. I am making my journal with a packet of Penpal or like fun mail that's going out in February, but you don't have to have that pack to make this journal. Just take 6 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper. It can be different kinds of paper or it can all be the same. And we're gonna end up with an accordion journal. Now the first thing that I'm gonna do, I want this to be kind of on the cover, and I've got it where it's right side up. So let's look at this from the outside where the orientation is correct, and I'm going to turn it over. Now notice I didn't flip it this way. You know, with junk journaling, it doesn't really matter. Nothing has to be perfect. And if you know me, you know that I use a lot of trash and recycle, and I love to say what the universe sends to me. The first thing I'm going to do, and we're not going to sew in this one, I want it to be really easy for beginners and also fun for people who have been doing this for a long time. I'm going to glue on this page with the glue stick, and then we're going to take another sheet of folded paper, make sure that the crease is standing up this way, and we're just going to lay that down to where it meets the fold. And you know, it's handy to pre-fold the papers so that you know you get this. Now for this part, I am going to flip it this way. And you might want to pay attention to the orientation if it really matters to you that the pages line up. The reason I flipped it this way is so that we can keep this pattern or system of keeping this fold on the top. And what you see side by side, that's going to end up being like in the open fold. So if you don't like the way that looks, like maybe I don't want those two together. Maybe I would rather have this one. Let's go ahead and put more glue on here. Oh wow, that was a huge chunk of glue off of this glue stick. Let's go ahead and put some glue here. Now, I don't use glue sticks all the time. I have recently bought some more. I was out. I do love them for my glue books. So I'm happy to have a stockpile of these large Elmer's glue sticks. I want to try some other brands too, but this is just what they had in the store. So again, I'm going to lay this piece down to where it's close to the fold, and that means, you know, that'll fold that way. And then I'm going to flip it again, and we're going to take another sheet of paper. I think this time I might alternate. And let's see, so it's facing up. Let's turn it this way so that the orientation of these pages match. But honestly, it's probably not gonna matter. And I see that the ice cream cones are going every which way, so I don't think it really has an orientation. But that is something to keep in mind if you wanna make one of these with pages that, you know, line up perfectly. You know, these glue sticks, you pay so much for them and they really do not last that long. But I don't want to use the tacky glue for this, so I'm just going to pull some out and use a craft stick to get this glue all over the page. Yeah, look at that. It's just crazy. Everything's gotten so expensive. I work in a retail store a few hours every week, and everybody who comes in talks about how expensive everything is, which is one more reason that it's a great idea to use what you have on hand. Part of the fun and the challenge of making this journal is to incorporate every day what the universe sends to you, whether it's using up your junk mail or things that you find, pieces of plant material, packaging from where you go shopping. You know what I mean. Anything that you can use that's going to be scrappy and junky. So let's turn this again and go ahead, and as aggravating as this is, I'm going to go ahead and get another bunch of glue out of here. And I think I'm probably, for this one, I'm going to grab this glue applicator, which one of you commented on. It really is like out of control. I've used this one so much It's like an iceberg. It's so big where the glue is piled up, but that's okay. And again, I'm not going to worry if I have areas where the glue is not completely covering the paper, because it's okay if some of this ends up being junky. That's what junk journals are. It's using what you have. Okay, so let's put that one there, and then we're going to flip again. And of course, since this paper is just tea stained paper, we don't have to worry about orientation anyway. But if you care about that, you just need to look at your pages as you flip. You might need to pick up the end here and look at it and say, oh, that's facing that way. Let me make sure they're going to be the same way when I'm done. But we're going to do a lot of covering up of these pages with all sorts of things. You know what? That one's done for. So let's spread this glue around. I've even enjoyed using my glue gun, my hot glue gun, a lot lately. So here's a brand new one. And honestly, maybe I've used that glue stick a whole lot more than I thought I did, because I've been doing a lot of junk journaling and working in my glue book over the last week. We're going to save that for the dollhouse. And I need to catch you up to speed, or get you up to speed on what all's been going on in the junky dollhouse that I have. All right, so let's well, that's close enough. This is going to end up being an accordion type book. And there's the front, and you've got pages that will turn like this. Now, the pages are thick. Yes, you might think it seems like a waste of paper. But I feel like it makes the paper thick enough to really do some work on. And I like things that feel substantial. It's just kind of the way I am. Now, because I like the thickness of these pages, because it's heavy enough to really work on, I'm going to take one more sheet of paper that's been folded, and I'm going to just tear it if I can without getting off the line. And of course, there I go. But it's okay if it's not perfect. That kind of makes it fun. And I'm going to take this side and glue it in here. Here's my handy dandy glue stick. Let's glue this one in here. It's been really fun to work with these glue sticks. And again, I don't care if it's not completely covered, because we're going to be doing a lot to this. And you know how I'm always saying you can go back and add to, repair, fix, tape, staple, whatever you need to do. And we're going to add this one to this side. This torn part, I put it out to the edge. I mean, you could take a larger sheet of paper if you wanted to and let it hang over a little bit, but I don't know. You might not want to do that. The point is, there are so many different ways to approach junk journaling. There's no wrong way and there's no right way. Everybody, it's fun to me to see what people end up using, because you get different mail than I get. Your trash, so to speak, your recycle is going to look different. We've commented on here before about how fun it is to see the packaging and the labels in different areas, because the stores are different and the brands are different. You know, foods, popular foods are different in different areas. So here we have, and see, like where this is not completely laying down, this is what I'm talking about. I can always come back and say, oh, I need more glue right there on the edge. So we've got this really fun book that we're going to work in, and we're going to be able to work on each side of the pages. It's amazing how much more exciting a journal suddenly becomes when you put a topper on it, or a piece to go on the cover. I'm determined not to sew anything with the machine on this one. And what I did was take 2 book pages that I tore down to be a good size to go on the front here. I wanted to have something paper as a base so that I can glue it down. I did switch over to my tacky glue to glue this fabric to the paper, because I feel like that's going to hold better than the glue stick. We've got tacky glue under this. And if there's anything that I would suggest collecting or even printing from the computer, it's beautiful images like this vintage lady with the swimsuit and the waves behind her. This is just a heart that I cut out of a library card, and it needs a little bit more glue. I then put some like glitter paint on top of it, and I've glued it down to everything. And this is where we're going to get a little bit junky. So we honestly could have stapled this all the way around and not used glue at all, but that's not the look that I wanted. However, I am going to add a few staples in strategic places to make sure that this bonds together. And I don't know, it's just going to be part of the cover. So why don't we come up here? And that is going to make sure that things do hold together and dry laying flat. And then the topper, we're just going to come back with our glue stick and glue it on the front. And I love having something like this to take inside and sit on the couch at night with Jason. I have an art bag, and it's just, it can be anything. It can be one of those like cloth storage bins from the Dollar Tree that cost $1.25 that you can just, you know, leave sitting by the couch. It can be a basket. It can be anything. I like my art bag because it has pockets, and I'm able to kind of keep things separated by category. It has little pouches on the ends where I can keep pens and pencils and that kind of thing. But to have something like this to carry around with you, you can journal all the time, and you can journal pretty much anywhere. I will carry this with me probably out of the house when I leave tomorrow to go to work. And as I find trash and things like this, like these are the edges from where I tore her out. We're not going to throw these away. We're going to put these in a little bag to use throughout the week, and they can fill up the subsequent pages. And, you know, it's actually going to pick up the cover again to have these being used on the inside. So now that we have pretty much a topper in place, and this doesn't mean this is done, we can come back and add so many things. And I would suggest, if you like slow stitching, for example, the pack, the Penpal Pack for February has got a stack of little pieces of fabric, and it also has some white embroidery floss. If there's anything that you want to do inside, I would suggest making little clusters with scrap paper and pieces of fabric and just stitching things up. And I'll show you some examples of some that I've made, and you can come back and glue them on the pages, and it is so much fun. You don't have to have a sewing machine. And I know for myself, this gives me something to do while I'm sitting watching television instead of eat. I make things instead of sitting there just mindlessly eating. And I didn't used to be that way, but you know, now that I'm in my 60s, it's like, to heck with it, I'm going to eat. No, I don't need to be doing that. So this is where it's going to get really fun. Everybody's trash is going to look different. I've got a few pieces of trash here that I pulled out of my trash box, and we are just going to start decorating this page. I know the first thing that I want to do is maybe put some sort of design on the page. This paper is already tea stained, but I think I want to maybe bring some sort of stamp onto this page, and a repeating pattern would be fun. We have these dots here, but I don't really want to use that. I'm wondering if it's going to be too much to maybe have... I messed up and left this brush sitting out overnight with gesso in it, but I think it's okay. I'm just going to dampen the brush a little bit. I mean the stamp. So let's just repeat this design, and it's okay if it's faint in some areas like that. It's going to be all right. It just gives us some background, and, you know, come down to the bottom and let it not be completely on the page. So that's really easy, and it's really cheap. We didn't have to go out and buy fancy paper. We've got this, and I want to start tearing up. You know what? Let's bring in this edging from where we created our topper, and I'm going to bring the glue stick in, and we're just going to start gluing things on this page. It doesn't have to be perfect. And again, I think this is so fun because it's going to be different for everybody if you truly make a junk journal and start incorporating your trash. This is a little heavier paper, so we might do something special with that. I don't necessarily know what. Her hand is on this piece, so I'm going to try to keep it so that her hand is right side up, and we'll put that there. I don't want to just overwhelm the paper with one thing over and over again. We have some white paper. This was wrapped around a fabric remnant that I purchased a couple of weeks ago, so let's use this up. It's nice white paper. Let's just put that down, and you're going to see that there are some edges sticking up. This doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm also okay, we've got glue on this paper here. If something ends up bonded together and you pull it apart, it's just going to leave a place where the paper is ripped. And you can go over that with ink stains. I just think junk journaling should be really enjoyable. I don't think it should be something where you're scared you're going to mess up or anything like that. Now, you got to remember, you can't really staple on the edges because then it's not going to open up over here. However, the top is going to be different with this type of journal. It's not going to interfere with the pages folding. So I think I'm going to put this. So I am going to put this on, but why don't we wait about that until closer to the end. And let's tear off this part with the bees. I really like that little bee. If the paper's too thick, sometimes you can pull layers apart like that and get it to where it's not so thick. So we can put that there. And we've got more paper from a Dunkin' Donuts bag. Let's just keep gluing. We'll get that D on there. And maybe put that right there. Another thing that I love is masking tape. So why don't we put a piece down the center? And it doesn't have to go all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom. If it does, that's okay. But again, there are no rules whatsoever. And another thing in your pack, and that you have on hand, I'm sure, like these little Penpal packets have different scrap pieces. And each one got a couple of pieces, but I'm sure you probably have paper in your, it seems like everybody who junk journals ends up with a stockpile of stuff because you save things and you buy things, but we can just tear up some of this paper to add to the page. Things like doilies are fun to use, and they don't have to be, nothing needs to be centered. If you want it to be, that's fine. It doesn't have to be. It's always interesting trying to glue down a doily because the glue goes through the little holes, and then you end up with so much on your paper underneath. But that's okay because we can come back and pick that up. And this, you might have a time working on these pages where you want to pull out either your dryer, your heat gun or your dryer, whatever you use. And this little piece of paper that we tore off of the back of that, maybe I'll try to get some of this glue up with that. That might not be enough to even stick though. And you don't have to, you can just use, as my mother would say, little giblets of things. It doesn't have to be great big pieces of anything. And now that we have this much, I'm going to take my distress pad, this Tim Holtz Ranger, and this is probably vintage photo. I think it's a favorite of everyone. And let's just grunge up this page and come back with a wet paintbrush. And I love to see how different papers take the ink. You can see on this one, it's not moving around that much. Now on this paper underneath, it is moving around. And again, this might be a time where you want to take out your heat gun or your dryer or whatever you use. And you can also add, now bear in mind, this can be considered like kind of hard on supplies, being rough with them or too hard on them. I don't think so. I like to use things. If I've got it, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to use it up, and I'm going to enjoy it. I think people who are making more precise things like, you know, really beautiful cards, are very themed projects where they don't want different colors bleeding together or all over the place. You might not want to do this, but this is perfectly fine with me. Now I'm going to dry this a little bit and I'll be back. Okay, this is pretty much dry. We've got some little edges sticking up. I'm okay with that. I think it adds to the interest. I love this. It's very grungy and distressed, but I think we want to add even more color. It doesn't necessarily have to be called grunge. Maybe that's what it is going to end up being, but I just want more interest on the page. And I love acrylic paint. Let's see, what kind of color do we want here? Maybe let's get some of this cadmium yellow, since we've got some of that yellow ink. We've got the bright orange in here from the Duncan bag. And I'm not going to worry about using this dirty brush, honestly. I am going to dry it off just a tiny bit. Why don't we put some over this little piece of cardboard and maybe around the edge on this where it's a little bit white. And we can put a big blob down here to kind of pin down the corner of that sheet. And I don't know, just, you know, whatever feels, it doesn't have to be perfect. Then you can water it down some more and just add some really transparent layers where you want to. Let's put another blob here. Now, this is where you might want to stop and come back to it later. It doesn't matter if you don't have a long time to art journal. You can just do a little bit at a time. I am going in soon, so I could stop here and let this dry and pick up again tomorrow. I can take my other things in and make some little clusters to put on the page tomorrow. Or once again, you can take out your heat gun. I am going to go ahead and stop soon, but I want to do a little bit of mark making. And since we already have the paint here that's going to dry overnight, maybe I will take some more acrylic paint, like this bittersweet chocolate. Let's shake it up. Because these acrylic paints, these cheap ones, can get kind of stringy and sometimes they're watery. You know, that one is stringy. There's like a whole clump in there that's going to come blasting out. That's really gross. I do like the brown with these other colors though. So let's take, and I also love to use really fun things to make marks. I think this went with a little honey jar or something, but I'm going to use it to put some circles on the page. And this brown might seem really drab or dull or gross or whatever you want to call it. But I promise if we come back later with a marker or some different colors and like even maybe some off-white, maybe a cream color, and put dots in the center of that. Maybe bring a black pen back and make circles, scribble circles around some of these dots. It's going to feel really fun. So why don't we come up in this corner and do a few and maybe do some on top of the yellow. And I like the way it's mixing it up there. Let's do one there. And I think I'm going to stop. I like this tool though because you can also sort of run it sideways and get some fun marks. That's enough. I don't want to overdo it. And in fact, well, I don't know. We might leave that where it is. No, we won't, because I want to prove a point. If there's something you don't like, don't be afraid to try to undo it. So, you know, we ended up with this smudge in the center, and I like that better. I'm not crazy about the way those lines turned out, although sometimes I love doing this with the lines. So don't be afraid to play and experiment, and do not be afraid to make something that you don't like. Every artist does that, from the best artist to someone who is in, preschool. We all make things we don't like. But anyway, so here is where we are. I will say, once again, when all of this dries and we come back, one of the most beautiful things to add is just a beautiful image. I love pictures of vintage ladies, really pretty stamps like from the 20s, Victorian images, and we're going to make some clusters to go on this page. It's going to be really beautiful, but if you look, we've made a journal, and it's one that once we filled up this side, we can flip it over and do the other side, and you can carry it around with you. In fact, if you didn't want to use acrylic paint, I'm a huge fan of alcohol markers, gelatos, which can be kind of, let me show you. Is that this is just lemon. I have a feeling it's not gonna, these can be spread around. So just realize that it's not going to be completely something that's not going to lift off the page. But alcohol markers and Sharpies, I absolutely love, because you don't have to wait for them to dry. If you're going to take an art bag around with you, I would suggest things like this. They're great for mark making. They're great for just drawing, coloring, whatever you want to do. If you come across a quote, like in the middle of the day, if somebody says something very cool or gives you an idea that you think, I don't want to lose this. And I will give you an example. It's not really a quote, but it's not, and I'm not going to forget it because of it being said to me, at work by a customer. But if I want to write it down for a keepsake, this lady was talking to me about how important it is for women to always have a little bit of cash on them. Well, anybody, but especially women, she said. She said it can save your life. If you find yourself in a place where someone approaches you and they're on drugs or whatever, and you have even a $5 bill, if they're asking for money, and say you're in a sort of an empty parking lot or in a place where nobody's around, that $5 could save you from being assaulted or, whatever. And I have been in a situation before, leaving work when I worked in a different place, coming out to my car after dark or almost dark, and a man who I think needed drug money, he got between my door and I couldn't close the door because he had physically gotten there. I did happen to have a $5 bill on me. I don't always give out money like that, but he asked for money. I handed it to him. He was overjoyed and he left. Now, I'm not saying he would have hurt me. He did not seem to have that attitude about him. But then again, so that's the kind of thing, I could write that down. A little note about being out and making sure you always have a little bit of cash on you. Women used to have what they called their mad money. They always had a little bit put back, and I think it's really important for women. So I'm going to go. We're going to let this dry, and in the next video, we will work some more in this. So I only have 8 of these. I made 10. I have one. One has already been purchased, and the price includes shipping. You've got this little pack that has the white embroidery floss. The stack of fabrics here is wrapped with some netting. You have these little hearts that I cut out and put the glitter paint on, and that is all wrapped up in that little packet. Then we have a couple of doilies and a couple of little rectangles of paper, a larger rectangle of paper, and then one of the full offcuts in case you want to tear these up. And always remember, if you don't like this side of the paper, use the other side or paint over it. Each one has a couple of pieces of fabric, really pretty. We have this, and it just feels so springy to me, these flowers. And then we have a piece of this really beautiful purple. Again, it feels very, very springy. We know that flowers are right around the corner. And then we have our pieces of paper. There's 1, 2, 3 sheets of 8.5 by 11 scrapbook paper. It's all random. They're all different pages. So you have 3 of those. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets of the tea stained paper. And keep in mind that when I made my accordion journal, I used 3 of these and the 3 scrapbook sheets. And then I tore 1 in half to go on the inside front and back covers. And then we have a couple of pages of words. You'll get a couple of book pages. And they are so much fun. It's fun to just cut out words and make either a poem or, do a blackout page where you keep just certain words. That's kind of a way to make a poem too. But this is the Penpal Pack. And I will be back soon with the second video showing you how this journal is going. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back really soon. Bye for now.